3 o'clock precisely I was at Baker Street, but Holmes had not yet returned. The landlady informed me that he had left the house shortly after 8 o'clock in the morning. I sat down beside the fire, however, with the intention of waiting him. However long he might be, I was already deeply interested in his inquiry, for though it was surrounded by none of the grim and strange features which were associated with the two crimes which I have already recorded, still the nature of the case and the exalted station of his client gave it a character of its own. Indeed, apart from the nature of the investigation which my friend had on hand, there was something in his masterly grasp of a situation and his keen, incisive reasoning which made it a pleasure to me to study his system of work and to follow the quick, subtle methods by which he disentangled the most inextricable mysteries. So accustomed was I to his invariable success that the very possibility of his failing had ceased to enter into my head. It was close upon 4 before the door opened, and a drunken-looking groom, ill-kempt and side-whiskered, with an inflamed face and disreputable clothes, walked into the room. Accustomed as I was to my friend's amazing powers in the use of disguises, I had to look 3 times before I was certain that it was indeed he. With a nod, he vanished into the bedroom, whence he emerged in 5 minutes, tweed-suited and respectable, as of old. Putting his hands into his pockets, he stretched out his legs in front of the fire and laughed heartily for some minutes. "Well, really," he cried, and then he choked and laughed again until he was obliged to lie back, limp and helpless, in the chair. "What is it?" "It's quite too funny. I'm sure you could never guess how I employed my morning, or what I ended by doing. I can imagine, I suppose, that you have been watching the habits." "And perhaps the house of Miss Arnadler." "Quite so, but the sequel was rather unusual. I will tell you, however, I left the house a little after 8 o'clock this morning in the character of a groom out of work. There's a wonderful sympathy and free matrimony among herdsmen. Be one of them, and you will know all that there is to know. I soon found Randall Lodge. It's a beautiful villa with a garden at the back, but built out in front right up the road, 2 stories. Shop locked to the door, large sitting room on the right side, well furnished with long windows almost to the floor, and those presbyterian English window fasteners which a child could open. Behind there was nothing remarkable, save that the passage window could be reached from the top of the coach house. I walked round it and examined it closely from every point of view, but without noting anything else of interest. I then lounged down the street and found, as I expected, that there was a mews in a lane which runs down by one wall of the garden. I lent the ostlers a hand in rubbing down their horses and received in exchange 2 pence a glass of half and half, 2 fills of shark tobacco, and as much information as I could desire about Miss Adler, to say nothing of half a dozen other people in the neighborhood in whom I was not in the least interested, but whose biographies I was compelled to listen to. "And what of Iron Adler?" I asked. "Oh, she has turned all the men's heads down in the perch. She is the daintiest thing under a bonnet on this planet. So say the serpentine muse to a man. She lives quietly, sings at concerts, drives out of 5 a day, returns at 7 sharp for dinner, seldom goes out other times except when she sings. Has only 1 male visitor, but a good deal for him. He is dark, handsome, and dashing, never calls less than once a day, and often twice. He is a Mr. Godfrey Norton of the Inner Temple. See the advantages of a cabman as a confidant. They had driven him home a dozen times from Serpentine Mews and knew all about him. When I had listened to all they had to tell, I began to walk up and down near Brown Lodge once more and to think over my plan of campaign. This Godfrey Norton was evidently an important factor in the matter. He was a lawyer, that sounded communist. What was the relation between them, and what the object of his repeated visits? Was she his client, his friend, or his mistress? If the former, she had probably transferred the photograph to his keeping. If the latter, it was less likely. On the issue of discretion depended whether I should continue my work at Brown Lodge or turn my attention to the gentleman's chambers in the temple. It was a delicate point, and it went at the field of my query. I fear that I bore you with these details, but I have to let you see my little difficulty if you are to understand the situation. I'm following you closely, I answered. I was still balancing the matter in my mind when a handsome cab drove up to Brian Lodge and a gentleman sprang out. He was a remarkably handsome man, dark, aquiline, and moist, evidently the man of whom I had heard. He appeared to be in a great hurry, shouted to the cabman to wait, and brushed past the maid, who opened the door with the air of a man who was thoroughly at home. He was in the house about half an hour, and I could catch glimpses of him in the windows of the sitting room, picking up and down, talking excitedly, and waving his arms. Of her I could see nothing. Presently he emerged, looking even more florid than before. As he stepped up to the cab, he pulled a gold watch from his pocket and looked at it earnestly. "Drive like the evil!" he shouted, first to Gross and Hankey's in Regent Street, and then to the Church of St. Monica in the Edgware Road. Half a guinea if you do it in 20 minutes. Away they went, and I was just wondering whether I should not do well. Well, to follow them when up the lane came a neat little landau, the coachman with his coat only half buttoned, and his tie under his ear, while all the tags of his harness were sticking out of the buckles. It hadn't pulled up before she shot out of the hall door into it. I only caught a glimpse of her at the moment, but she was a lovely woman, with a face that a man might die for. "The Church of St. Monica, John," she cried, "and a half a sovereign if you reach it in 20 minutes. This was quite too good to lose, wasn't? I was just balancing whether I should run for it, or whether I should perch behind her landau when a cab came through at the street. When a cab came through the street, the driver looked twice at such a shabby fare, but I jumped in before they could object. The Church of St. Monica, said I, at half a sovereign if you reach it in 20 minutes. It was 25 minutes to 12, and of course it was clear enough what was in the mind. My cabby drove fast. I don't think I ever drove faster, but the others were there before us. The cab and the landau with their steamy horses were in front of the door when I arrived. I paid the man and hurried into the church. There was not a soul there save the two whom I had followed, and a surprised clergyman who seemed to be expostulating with them. They were all three standing in a knot in front of the altar. I glanced up the side as though, like any other idler who has dropped into a church. Silently, to my surprise, the three at the altar faced round to me, and Godfrey Norton came running as hard as he could towards me. "Thank God!" he cried. "You will do. Come, come." "What then?" I asked. "Come, man, come. Only 3 minutes, or it won't be legal." I was half dragged up to the altar, and before I knew where I was, I found myself mumbling responses which were whispered in my ear, and vouching for things of which I knew nothing, and generally hesitating in the door. However, they separated, he driving back to the temple and she to her own house. "I shall drive out in the park at 5 as usual," she said as she left him. I heard no more. They drove away in different directions, and I went off to make my own arrangements, which are some cold beef and a glass of beer, he answered, ringing the bell. "I have been too busy to think of food, and I am likely to be busier still this evening. By the way, doctor, I shall want your cooperation." "I shall be delighted." "You don't mind breaking the law?" "Not in the least." "Nor running a chance of arrest?" "Not in a good cause." "Oh, the cause is excellent." "Then I'm your man." I was sure that I might rally on you, but was it you wish? When Mrs. Tana has brought in the tray, I will make it clear to you. Now, he said as he turned hungrily on the simple fare that our landlady had provided. I must discuss it while I eat, for I have not much time. It is nearly 5 now. In 2 hours we must be on the scene of action. Miss Iron or Madam rather returns from her drive at 7. We must be at Brian Lodge to meet her. And what then? You must leave that to me. I have already arranged what is to occur. There is only one point on which I must insist. You must not interfere, come what may. You understand? I am to be neutral? To do nothing whatever. There will probably be some small impliciousness. Do not join in it. It will end in my being conveyed into the house. 4 or 5 minutes afterwards, the sitting room window will open. You are to station yourself close to that open window. Yes, you are to watch me, for I will be visible to you. Yes, and when I raise my hand, so you will throw into the room what I give you to throw, and will, at the same time, raise the cry of fire. You quite follow me? Entirely. It is nothing very formidable, he said, taking a long sugar-shaped roll from his pocket. It is an ordinary plumber's smoke rocket, fitted with a cap at either end to make it self-lighting. Your task is confined to that. When you raise your cry of fire, it will be taken up by quite a number of people. You may then walk to the end of the street, and I will rejoin you in the 10 minutes. I hope that I have made myself clear. I am to remain neutral, to get near the window to watch you, and at the signal to throw in the subject. Then to raise the cry of fire and to wait you at the corner of the street. Precisely. Then you may entirely rely on me. This is excellent. I think perhaps it is almost time that I prepare for the new role I have played.